evening. Please be aware that the first hour and a half of this meeting will be recorded so that we can put it onto our website and podcast. We record in audio only. Feel free to use the podcast on our website along with your big book as a resource if you missed the study portion of the meeting. The study portion is also listed on the website so that you can follow along. And in accordance with our group conscience in October 2023, we will also be posting our podcast on YouTube, also in audio only. We feel this is an effective way to carry our message to those seeking recovery in Alcoholics Anonymous. Tonight's recap will start on page 26 and end on page 28, and our study for tonight will start on page 28 and end on page 29. And do we have any announcements?
Hi family, my name is Jamie, very grateful recovered alcoholic. We had a group conscience last night. It was very productive, so those of you who are home group members, watch your emails please for the minutes that will be coming out from that and the things that happened within the group conscience. I will make mention of this real quickly for those of you who happen to be home group members. When you get those emails, if you will take the time to read them and see what they have to say, we can probably dispense with some of the time factor involved by making a motion to accept the secretary's report as read instead of having to go through 15 minutes of what we did the last time. Trish and I will also be putting on a service workshop for those of you who would like to learn about service in this group. And we've done a couple. They've been very effective. We always need people to help us out with this meeting. You guys are this group, and it doesn't work without you. So for anyone who is willing to help us out, we would be happy to have you step into service. Last thing is I'm going to Area 64 First Quarter Assembly this weekend, so details about that and GSR report will follow afterwards. And I think that's it, isn't it, Trish, unless you've got something? Okay. And good evening, family. My name is Jamie. I'm a very grateful recovered alcoholic. Welcome to the Lewisburg Primary Purpose Big Book Study Group. To prepare for our Big Book study, let's get focused by having a 3-minute moment of silent meditation followed by our family's fog light prayer.
And I'm a recovered alcoholic. My name is Trish. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're going to start the meditation in a minute, so please take a moment to get situated.
Please be aware of background noises when you are unmuted, and sharing is to not distract others or yourself. We suggest we all observe proper Zoom etiquette. If you wouldn't do it in a live meeting, please don't do it here. Just a friendly reminder that absence of profanity offends no one. Please keep yourselves muted during someone else's share, and we will call on you in the order that hands are raised.
From the foreword to the first edition of Alcoholics Anonymous. We of Alcoholics Anonymous are many thousands of men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book and of this group.
For the meditation, some suggestions are: focus on your breath and posture, breathe in God, and breathe out self.
Take this time to reconnect with God. Let the craziness of the day drift away and ask God to help you focus on the study.
And on that note, let's bring the monks in and let the monks do what they do. Enjoy your time with God, folks. And if you'd like to join us in our family's fog light prayer, it'll be on your screen in front of you. God, let your love shine through us like a fog light, so that those that are lost, sick, and dying can find your love through us. Amen.
And let's have our secretary's report.
Oh, all right. Good evening, everybody. My name's Molly, and I'm your recovered alcoholic secretary. I've asked, who did I ask? Nikki. I've asked Nikki to read the recovered statement. We read this notice to explain why many people in this group identify as recovered rather than recovering, and what it exactly means to be a recovered alcoholic. Take it away, Nick.
Hi, I'm Nicole. I'm a recovered alcoholic. We are not cured of alcoholism, recovered but never cured. That presents a conflict to some alcoholics. If we were cured, we would be able to drink responsibly. No, we are not cured. The allergic reaction to alcohol will remain with us for a lifetime, but we have been restored to sanity. That was the problem. The main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than in his body. Age 23, we are now sane where alcohol is concerned. Consequently, we have recovered. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. So thank you for joining us tonight. We meet every Tuesday evening at 5:30 p.m. Central with the Gerbil Fellowship Cage, where we chatter for an hour before the start of the meeting. Feel free to bring side dishes to share with the husbands. Our Big Book study starts promptly at 6:30 p.m. Central, and we ask that you be courteous and ready to begin at the sound of the foghorn. We take our Big Book study seriously. Because of this, chat will be disabled during the study. In the 1940s, when the only elements to sobriety were God, a Big Book, and one recovered alcoholic working with an untreated alcoholic, the success rate was as follows. From the foreword to the second edition of Alcoholic Anonymous, page XX, of alcoholics who came to AA and really tried, 50% got sober at once and remained that way. 25% sobered up after some relapses, and the remainder, those who stayed on with AA, showed improvement. Can we have a show of hands of people joining us for the first time? I saw some new faces, or names anyway.
I believe we have Jordan and Sam with us for the first time tonight. Welcome. Glad to have you with us.
Welcome. And then the recovered alcoholics, if you could show yourselves. These are your potential sponsors. Is anyone celebrating a milestone this week? Okie dokie, doesn't look like it. If you should require a big book of your own, we have large print editions available that can be sent to you by buzzard mail. Delivery time is questionable. Please remember to practice our seventh tradition by donating to the group address, Venmo, or PayPal posted in the chat. Our suggestion is to purchase a big book and take an untreated alcoholic through the program of recovery. Please visit our website posted in chat. Thank you, and see you next week.
Thank you so much, Molly. Thank you for your service tonight, and Nicole as well. From Chapter 2, there is a solution. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree, and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. This is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism.
This is an open meeting, and as such, all who have an interest in alcoholism and our program of recovery are welcome. Because this is an open meeting, you need not identify yourself nor your reason for being here if you do not wish to do so. Your anonymity will be protected. We ask that you protect ours.
While this is an open meeting, membership in this group is limited to those who wish to recover from alcoholism and have a desire to stop drinking for good and all. Each member of Alcoholics Anonymous is a potential sponsor of a new member and should clearly recognize the obligations and duties of such a responsibility.
And before we begin our study of the Big Book, last weekend we reviewed Tradition 8. Tonight, let's take a quick look at Tradition 9. Please refer to page 562 of the book, Alcoholics Anonymous.
And hi family, my name is Jamie. I'm still a grateful recovered alcoholic, and I'm going to fill in for Tradition tonight. Tradition 9, the short form. AA as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. And from our long form. Each AA group needs the least possible organization. Rotating leadership is best. The small group may elect its secretary. The large group, its rotating committee, and the groups of large metropolitan area, their central or intergroup committee, which often employs full-time secretary. The trustees of the General Service Board are in effect our AA General Service Committee. They are the custodians of the AA tradition and the receivers of voluntary AA contributions by which we maintain our AA General Service Office in New York. They are authorized by the groups to handle the overall public relations, and they guarantee the integrity of our principal newspaper, the AA Grapevine, and all such representatives are to be guided in the spirit of service, for true leaders in AA are but trusted servants and experienced servants of those of the whole. They derive no real authority from their titles. They do not govern. Universal respect is the key to their usefulness. So, let me talk about primary purpose for a second. In this group, we try and have the spirit of rotation as best as possible, because this is a Zoom meeting and not a bricks and mortar meeting where you might elect a new chairman of the meeting and rotate coffee makers and so on. It works a little bit differently. However, we believe in the spirit of rotation in this group. Trish and I are the main facilitators in this group, but we try and split duties with other members and try and bring them into the service part of this, doing exactly what we do tonight, the screen shares and the facilitation and the question asking and hosting the meeting. One of the things that we try and encourage into this group is any of you who would like to do what we do, you are more than welcome to. I would eventually like to see this group come to a point where I can rotate out completely, or Trish can rotate out completely, and we can alternate back in and out. Because this group is about those of you who attend it, not us being the facilitators. However, because we are in the electronic world and we all live in different states, that has a couple of requirements. It has willingness on our parts as group members to still participate, even though we might not be going into a bricks and mortar meeting, and we're very happy to do that. And that's the spirit of rotation in this group, and that's the type of trusted servants and spirit of rotation that they're talking about within the group. We would love to be able to operate 100% just like it does in the bricks and mortar world, but we do, to the best of our ability, try and provide that. As far as larger groups and the intergroup committees, well, I'll give you an example. I happen to be GSR of this group. We do not have a corrections committee chair in this meeting. We don't have a PI and CPC committee chair or a grapevine chair in this meeting. Many of your larger groups do. In the district level, this group also participates, and so we have some activity there, and I serve as a PI and CPC chair. We're not involved with intergroup or anything like that, but it would be nice to have somebody who was involved in that. And by the way, they do meet hybrid as well, and that would represent our group at an intergroup level. When it comes to New York, Alcoholics Anonymous is an upside down triangle, and the groups are the boss. New York doesn't set the mandate. They are the trustees of what the mandate has to be, and they are the trustees of our traditions and preserving them so that all Alcoholics Anonymous groups may survive. Does that require, it requires Class B trustees, which there are 14 that are all alcoholic. It has 7 Class A trustees that are non-alcoholic. Generally, these Class A trustees are somehow in the professional world, maybe accounting or something, but they all bring something to Alcoholics Anonymous that helps Alcoholics Anonymous function not only here in US and Canada, but in conjunction with AA World Services to help us carry the message all over the world. But there again, it is all in the spirit, or at least supposed to be, of being a trusted servant. I know for many, many years I was just a meeting maker, and that's all I did was go to meetings, and I didn't serve my group. Today I serve my group at all costs, and that is very, very important to me. But I'm here because of who you guys are. I'm here to serve you and to serve this group. And when it comes to this group, as being the group's GSR, I am at the bottom of the food chain. I carry out the mandate that the group sets. It's not my place to set policies, set guidelines, or anything like that. I am supposed to do what it is that the group itself tells me to do. So that being said, that's what I have for you on Tradition 9 tonight. One more thing, and it is this passage as well. For the true leaders in AA are but trusted and experienced servants of the whole. And that's where the idea was added into the short form of Tradition 2, that our leaders are but trusted servants, they do not govern. Because that was added into the short form, and it's not part of the long form of Tradition 2. So, because too many people were trying to run the show. And on that note, I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you for your service and experience on our Tradition 9. And we'll have a new traditionalist coming in next week. So, it's now time for this week's episode of That Ain't in the Book. We hear a lot of things said in meetings that can't be reconciled with the program as it's described in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. What follows is one of the things we often hear, along with what the book has to say on the subject. And one of the things we hear in meetings a lot is there are no musts in the program. Jim, can you tell us what it says on page 44 in paragraph 3, please?
Yes. Hello everyone, Jim, an alcoholic. We had to face the fact that we must find a spiritual basis of life, or else.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Let's see. And as we study, please make use of the pens, highlighters, and rulers so that you can share this experience with another alcoholic.
In order for us to stay focused as we study the Big Book, we use the Big Book Study Guide prepared by Joe and Charlie and Krusty Cliff of the Dallas Primary Purpose Group.
And tonight we are going to, let me get back to it here, we are going to start our recap on page 26, which will take us into page 28. Tonight on 26, we are going to pick it up at a certain American businessman and finish that off in page 28, and then we will finish out this chapter tonight before we move on to next week's chapter.
After the page is read, we will ask questions from the imaginary podium, starting back to where our study began on page 28. The answers will be one sentence unless otherwise specified, and multi-part questions are simply a one-sentence answer split up by commas, semicolons, hyphens, and other fun bits of punctuation.
You get to say that line tonight. Basically, in English, what that means is that we are going to read the material once through and then dissect the information a second time through the question and answer format. Notice how the language in the question gives you a new light in which to consider the study material.
This is important because hearing the question and rereading the content offers a definite way of comprehending the material covered. After we've completed the study, we open up for comment, questions, and observations based on what was just read. If you have spiritual experiences with this information, you are free to share. Please keep your share on topic and under 5 minutes. At the 5-minute mark, you may hear a timer beep to let you know that your time is finished, or you may see a little cute puppy pop up in one of the screens.
However, Big Book study is not therapy should you begin sharing on topics which are more appropriately discussed in a different setting. For example, with your sponsor, please do not be offended when we cut the conversation short and send the buzzards nipping at your heels. They may already be flying your way. They haven't come home for 3 days because of the weather. For that purpose, we have fellowship meetings before and after our study time.
You can never go wrong by commenting on the pages studied, which brings us to the words of one of the co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous. Sobriety, freedom from alcohol, through the teaching and practice of the 12 steps, is the sole purpose of any Alcoholics Anonymous group.
And before we begin the study tonight, folks, how we got here, this January 7th was our 4-year anniversary of this group, which started right here in my living room with 12 other alcoholics, and COVID hit, and then we went hybrid for a while, and then we went 100% virtual, and at the beginning of April we'll be celebrating our 4th year virtually. But this is a 94-week Big Book study from beginning to end, and we start on the title page, the very first promise in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, the story of how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. We go through the preface, the forewords, the doctor's opinion, which gives us the understanding of a threefold disease. And we do all of it through this question and answer format that we use tonight. Bill's story, the classic 12-step call. And we have, for the last few weeks, we have been in There Is a Solution, and they are showing us that there is a solution to the problem that we have, alcoholism. Next week we will be moving into more about alcoholism, which is about 2 things and 2 things only: the mental obsession and untreated alcoholism. And we'll spend some time in that chapter, and we'll learn some very important things, like the people who kept relapsing, there's something that they failed to do. which was expand their spiritual life. Then from there we will move into what I think to be one of the greatest chapters on the planet, the chapter to the agnostic. And what that does is that it gives us all a pathway to find that source of power that is greater than ourselves, no matter what it needs to look like for each individual. Your God doesn't have to look like mine at all, but it does give us a pathway to finding that. Then we move into chapter 5, which tells us how to do two things: how to take steps 3 and 4, and it'll give us the prayers that we'll use, the actions we take, and it will show us the promises that will result from the actions that we take. From there we move into chapter into action, and in just 16 short pages it takes us through 7 steps of the big book, from step 5 to step 11, which I find absolutely amazing. Then we will move into the chapter working with others, and from there we will move into the pre-Al-Anon chapters, to wives, the family afterward, and to the employers. And we will end up finishing out with a vision for you, and then we spend a few weeks doing Dr. Bob's Nightmare, 2 weeks on the traditions with the question and answer format, and one more visit to the spiritual experience, standing alone. The reason we do that is because it's important to know what a spiritual experience is, so we can recognize one if we happen to be having one. And that's how we got here.
Thanks, Jamie. Before we start the recap, we will need 4 or 5 virtual hands raised if you would like to be one of our answer readers. And again, please be aware that the first hour and a half of this meeting will be recorded so that we can put it onto our website.
And let's see, Art is going to come in and do our recap for us tonight. Welcome, my friend.
Good evening. We're covered up.
Art, you froze. Uh-oh, we have a glitch. Art, let me turn off your camera. See if that helps.
Oh.
Okay, Art, I just shut off your video because you were freezing. Try it now. All right. You got it, Trish. Can you read the recap?
I got the recap, starting on page 26. A certain American businessman had ability, good cause, and high character. For years he had floundered from one sanitarium to another. He had consulted the best-known American psychiatrists. Then he had gone to Europe, placing himself in the care of a celebrated physician, the psychiatrist Dr. Young, who prescribed for him. Though experience had made him skeptical, he finished his treatment with unusual confidence. His physical and mental condition were unusually good. Above all, he believed he had acquired such a profound knowledge of the inner workings of his mind and its hidden springs that relapse was unthinkable. Nevertheless, he was drunk in a short time. More baffling still, he could give himself no satisfactory explanation for his fall. So he returned to this doctor, whom he admired, and asked him point blank why he could not recover. He wished above all things to regain self-control. He seemed quite rational and well-balanced with respect to other problems, yet he had no control whatever over alcohol. Why was this? He begged the doctor to tell him the whole truth, and he got it. In the doctor's judgment, he was utterly hopeless. He could never again regain his position in society, and he would have to place himself under lock and key or hire a bodyguard if he expected to live long. That was the great physician's opinion. But this man still lives, and is a free man. He does not need a bodyguard, nor is he confined. He can go anywhere on earth where other men may go without disaster, provided he remains willing to maintain a certain simple attitude. Some of our alcoholic readers may think they can do without spiritual help. Let us tell you the rest of the conversation our friend had with his doctor. The doctor said, "You have the mind of a chronic alcoholic. I have never seen one single case recover where that state of mind existed to the extent that it does in you." Our friend felt as though the gates of hell had closed on him with a clang. He said to the doctor, "Is there no exception?" "Yes," replied the doctor, "there is. Exceptions to cases such as yours have been occurring since early times. Here and there, once in a while, alcoholics will have what are called vital spiritual experiences. To me, these occurrences are phenomena. They appear to be in the nature of huge emotional displacements and rearrangements. Ideas, emotions, and attitudes, which were once the guiding forces of the lives of these men, are suddenly cast to one side, and a completely new set of conceptions and motives begin to dominate them. In fact, I've been trying to produce some such emotional rearrangement within you. With many individuals, the methods which I employed are successful, but I have never been successful with an alcoholic of your description." Upon hearing this, our friend was somewhat relieved, for he reflected that, after all, he was a good church member. This hope, however, was destroyed by the doctor telling him that while his religious convictions were very good, in his case they did not spell the necessary vital spiritual experience. Here was the terrible dilemma in which our friend found himself when he had the extraordinary experience which, as we have already told you, made him a free man.
Thank you so much, Trish. And Art, sorry about that, but your internet froze. So it couldn't hear you. Tried shutting off your camera. That didn't seem to help either. And then I saw you bounce. So welcome back. And Alyssa is going to come in and read our study portion tonight. Alyssa?
Thank you, Alyssa, recovered alcoholic. We, in our turn, sought the same escape with all the desperation of drowning men. What seemed at first a flimsy reed has proved to be the loving and powerful hand of God. A new life has been given us, or, if you prefer, a design for living that really works. The distinguished American psychologist William James, in his book, Varieties of Religious Experience, indicates a multitude of ways in which men have discovered God. We have no desire to convince anyone that there is only one way by which faith can be acquired. If what we have learned and felt and seen means anything at all, it means that all of us, whatever our race, creed, or color, are the children of a living Creator, with whom we may form a relationship upon simple and understandable terms as soon as we are willing and honest enough to try. Those having religious affiliations will find here nothing disturbing to their beliefs or ceremonies. There is no friction among us over such matters. We think it no concern of ours what religious bodies our members identify themselves as individuals. This should be an entirely personal affair which each one decides for himself in the light of past associations or present choice. Not all of us join religious bodies, but most of us favor such memberships. In the following chapter, there appears an explanation of alcoholism as we understand it, then a chapter addressed to the agnostic. Many who once were in this class are now among our members. Surprisingly enough, we find such convictions no great obstacle to a spiritual experience. Further on, clear-cut directions are given showing how we recovered. These are followed by 42 personal experiences. Each individual in the personal story describes in his own language and from his own point of view the way he established his relationship with God. These give a fair cross-section of our membership and a clear-cut idea of what has actually happened in their lives. We hope no one will consider these self-revealing accounts in bad taste. Our hope is that many alcoholic men and women desperately in need will see these pages, and we believe that it is only by fully disclosing ourselves and our problems that they will be persuaded to say, yes, I am one of them too. I must have this thing. Thanks for letting me read.
Thank you so much for being a service tonight, Pinky. And okay, we got 3 hands up, so that's what we're going to go with. And the batting order tonight will be Rick, William, and Nicole. So, Rick, I'm going to start off with you, my friend, right back to where Alyssa started reading, folks, is where we're taking off from. So, Rick, what do we do that Roland did?
We in our turn sought the same escape with all the desperation of drowning men.
Thank you. And William, what has the flimsy beginning proved to be?
What seemed to be at first a flimsy wreath has proven to be the loving and powerful hand of God.
Thank you. Nicole, 2-part question. A, what does the program of Alcoholics Anonymous give the suffering alcoholic? And B, or what is another way to view what we are given?
A new life has been given us, or if you prefer, a design for living that really works.
Thank you. Rick, coming back to you. What contribution did William James make to AA?
The distinguished American psychologist William James, in his book Varieties of Religious Experience, indicates a multitude of ways in which men have discovered God.
Thank you. William, what do we not want to do?
We have no desire to convince anyone that there is only one way by which faith can be acquired.
Thank you. And Nicole, you're hitting the jackpot with the 2-parters tonight. A, what does the experience of the first 100 mean? And B, when will this happen?
If what we have learned and felt and seen means anything at all, it means that all of us, whatever our race, creed, or color, are the children of a living Creator with whom we may form a relationship upon simple and understandable terms as soon as we are willing and honest enough to try.
Thank you so much. Rick, coming back to you, my friend. Will the program, as described in the book, disturb any religious views?
Those having religious affiliations will find here nothing disturbing to their beliefs or ceremonies.
Thank you. William, do we argue with religious views?
There is no friction among us over such matters.
Thank you. Nicole, do we care what religious group or groups a member belongs to?
We think it no concern of ours what religious bodies our members identify themselves with as individuals.
Thank you. Rick, coming back to you. How do we view that topic?
This should be an entirely personal affair, with each one decides for himself in the light of past occasions or his present choice.
Thank
Associations,
you.
I'm sorry.
Th-
Past associations.
Thank you so much. William, you get a 2-parter now. A, do all of us join up with a religious group? And B, do we favor such affiliation?
No, all of us join religion, not all of us join religious body, but most of us favor such religious membership.
Thank you, Nicole. Two-part question. What will we learn in the next chapter? And B, what is the next chapter following that one about?
In the following chapter, there appears an explanation of alcoholism as we understand it. Then a chapter addressed the agnostic.
Thank you. Rick, coming to you, sir. Do we get a lot of agnostics in AA?
Many who once were in this class are now among our members.
Thank you. And William, is being an agnostic a great handicap to recovery?
Surprisingly enough, we find such conviction no greater obstacle to a spiritual experience.
Thank you, Nicole. Another two-part question. A, further on, what are we given? And B, showing us what?
Further on, clear-cut directions are given showing how we recovered.
Now I'm going to jump in with a comment. The Big Book is our only literature which gives the precise directions for taking the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, leading us to recovery from alcoholism.
Thank you, Trish. And Rick, coming back to you. What follows the clear-cut directions in the basic text?
These are followed by 42 personal experiences.
Thank you. William, what do these 42 personal stories show us?
And each individual in the personal story described in his own language and from his own point of view the way he established his relationship with God.
Thank you. Nicole, what do the stories accomplish?
These give a fair cross-section of our membership and a clear-cut idea of what has actually happened in their lives.
Thank you very much. Rick, coming back to you, sir. What do we hope those who read these stories will not do?
We hope no one will consider these self-revealing accounts in bad taste.
Thank you. And William, you get the final question of the night and of this chapter, my friend. What do we hope the stories will do for the suffering alcoholic?
Our hope is that many alcoholics, men and women, desperately in need, will see these pages, and we believe that it is only by fully disclosing ourselves and our problem that they will be persuaded to say, yes, I'm one of them too. I must have this thing. Thank you, jackpot.
And I'm going to jump back in again. On page 17, we are told two vital things. First, that they have given us a fellowship, a place to gather and share our experience with each other. Second, they have given us a spiritual solution that will help us become recovered from the hopeless state of mind and body and overcome our alcoholism. In this chapter, it doesn't say anything about 90 meetings in 90 days or meeting makers making. Instead, the primary purpose or the primary focus is that there is a spiritual solution offered, regardless of any other affiliations we have, religious or non-religious. Hope is found here.
Thank you so much, Trish, and thank you, folks. We are glad you are all here, and now the floor is open to sharing on the material that we have read tonight. Questions, answers, observations, experience, spiritual experience. It is all up to you, folks. See, I can easily go into the second part of meditation. Come on in, Toe Tap and Pickle.
Hi, I'm Trish, I'm an alcoholic. And, the part that always jumps out at me when we read this section of the book is top of page 29. Further on, clear-cut directions are given showing us how we recovered. And then the comment that the Big Book is our only literature which gives the precise directions for taking the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, leading us to recovery from alcoholism. When I first came into the rooms of AA, the people in that area were not really big on the Big Book apparently, and I was one of those people told early on, read the 12 and 12 for step 1. In fact, the directions I was given was read step 1 every day for 30 days or until you're told to stop. And if I followed those directions, I would still be reading step 1 out of the 12 and 12 and never moving on to any of the other steps. So following that direction, I had a really slow start getting into the steps, and nothing wrong with the direction they were giving me other than it wasn't out of the book, but that may have been the direction they were given, and I don't know how many generations back that goes. But once I got into the book and once I was able to recognize that the directions are truly in the Big Book and not in the 12 and 12, not in the other literature. The other literature has a place, but if I'm looking to take the steps the way that I'm directed to do it, I've got to do it the way that is written in the book. And if I'm trying to guide somebody or if I'm taking somebody through the steps, I'm gonna at this point tell them the same thing. Stick to the Big Book. That's where the directions are, not in all these other books. And if they want to read another book after they've finished with their steps, after they've gone through their steps, just to get a different perspective, but remembering that the directions are in that Big Book. It's no wonder that when I was trying to work through step 1, step 2, step 3, and fumbling all over the place on step 4 without having the directions as they were listed here in the book, that I didn't know what I was doing. Without good sponsorship guidance, and during part of that time without any sponsorship guidance, trying to do it on my own, and not having the book of directions in my hand, is no wonder I didn't know what I was doing. But fortunately, God saw fit to bring me to people who got me into the book, got me to recognize not just what's in the book, but to find myself in those pages. And as I found myself in those pages, or in all of the pages of the book, that's where the program really started coming alive for me, and I was starting to relate, and was really able to retake the steps at a much deeper level than I did initially. And that's all I got right now.
Thank you, Trish. Pickle Chips, welcome.
Hi, I'm Pickle Chips, recovered alcoholic. I usually don't jump in to share when I'm late, but Trish and I both hit the button at the same time. So, I love what you said, Trish, because where I got sober, the 12 and 12 was the book. We had 12 and 12 meetings, we had 12 and 12 sayings, on the wall in the halls, and, the 12 but 12, and the first gal I tried to, one of the first gals I tried to sponsor, I was trying to do it from the 12 and 12. And I wasn't getting anywhere. She could not do that first step. And after being with you guys for 3 years and seeing how I coulda, shoulda, woulda, use a big book instead, and gone through it that way. I know we did. We read the big book together, but my focus wasn't on that. It was on the 12 and 12. And she stuck with me for a year, and we kept going back to step one. And she had her first birthday, and there were presents and cakes and balloons, and at one of her friends' house, and we were all so proud of her, and she's thanking me, her sponsor, and all that. Well, a few months later, she took me to lunch and told me that she wasn't sober. And so she got a new sponsor, and hopefully, I guess the new sponsor did it right, because I think she's sober today, because she's a children's book illustrator, and I've seen a couple of her books on the shelves. So she's successful now, but boy, I hadn't heard that before I started with you guys, and this has just been so helpful in my particular growth and my working of the steps. And one other thing I wanted to point out about tonight's reading is, if I was told when I got here that I had to believe a certain way, or in a certain God, or go to a certain church, which I was, by the way, I'll get to that in a second. But the rebel that I am, I would have totally ran. Because what I heard in Al-Anon before I got here is I got to choose whatever God I wanted. And that God, that higher power, got me through until I was ready. And I've shared this in this meeting before, but I want to share it again because it's so important about what not to do. There was this guy named Jesus Jim, and he used to follow me to my car after meetings, and I was going daily, and telling me that unless I got Jesus, I would not stay sober. And I didn't know how to do that. You tell somebody they have to believe a certain way, and I wasn't ready for that yet. And so I started just avoiding him and having people walk me to my car, and just staying away from that, because that's not what I needed at the time. I was brand new. And, a few years later, I found a personal relationship with my higher power. And it took me 3 years to get there, though. But if I was the type of person that listened to somebody like that, I wouldn't be here today. I don't think I would have stayed sober believing in a God that I didn't believe in yet. So, but let me tell you, when I got baptized, that man was taking credit. He was telling everybody, I'm the one that got her saved, and all that. And I just let it go. If he needed to believe that, then, by then I was a little more mature. But I love this chapter, and I'm glad I got on. I was having terrible connection problems. But I'm here, and I'm loving what I hear, and so looking forward to hearing from the rest of you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pickle Chips. Glad to see you. Glad you're feeling better. William, come on in, my friend.
My name is William Alcoholic. I just want to say hi to everybody. I got in a little late too. I started doing a few tasks around the house, and time just slipped away. But I'm here. I'm glad to be here and stuff. And I just want to. Last week I did some guilt and pride investigation, and I went back and did some investigation, and I more or less put the dots together to my understanding. I was talking about Roland Hassett and Dr. Young and stuff like that. So I went back and did the investigation. Roland Hassett did go to Zurich, Switzerland to meet Dr. Carl Young. And that's part of the spark that set off this where we at today. And Roland Hassett only stayed sober for a year, but Dr. Carl Young suggested that he go to a self-help program, and that's what he met Evie. And then from Evie to Bill, and we're here today living sober because of that. And I certainly out there, whenever we do reading like this, because I don't think I really understood it whenever I was in the process of this revolution change in my mind and all the stuff that was going on. I was just showing up, and definitely the part back there where they say other people be there. You have to have this God conscious and all this stuff will happen to you if you practice this one. And that's what happened to me, I showed up here and this little part right here today that said out here, a distinguished American psychologist, William James, in his book, Variety of Religion Experience, indicate a multitude of ways in which men have discovered God. We have no desire to convince anyone that there is only one way by which faith can be acquired. If what we have learned and felt and seen mean anything at all, it means that all of us, whatever race, creed, or color, are children of a living creator with whom we may form a relationship upon simple understanding in terms soon as we are willing to, honest enough, to try. And that's what happened. That's what happened to me. And the key to all of that, it wasn't about those abstracts, outside abstract. It was about that unconditional love that people gave me, And I sort of look at it like, whenever you look at the fifth tradition in the illustrator, you see the newcomer come in the room like a tiger, and the people are looking down at him saying, "We're not afraid of you. You're not afraid of you." All they saying, all you need a little love. You know what I mean? And not everybody showed me that thing, that love, but it was enough to keep me coming. It was enough to make me want to come back. You know what I mean? So definitely, I thank God for that. And I always thought like that. Anyway, that was sort of my thought pattern all the time. Nobody made themselves. So definitely we all are creative, or something. I can see all the other work that goes on in the universe. So that's what healed me. And and whenever we get there, it's someplace in the big book. I don't remember exactly where, and it really helped me to stay here. It said Bill used a lot of metaphors and a lot of similes. And these are the things that stuck to my head when I was going through the ups and downs and recovery. He says that put on the shoe that fits your feet. Now I thought about that. I said, I wear a 10 and a half. And what I look like having a size 9 on, you know what I mean? That is not a good feeling, you know what I mean? So all these things come together today as I stay sober. I can begin to see it. I know if I keep coming, more will be revealed, man. That's the good part about this thing. Whenever I get here, I can love the life I live. I can allow other people to have the life they have, without all that other stuff coming in. And when they do come in, Lord knows I don't want to drink. And the other thing, I ask God to forgive me right away, so I won't be in that. Because it's not a good feeling when you ain't blacked out or drunk to do stuff. Today I got a little bit of memory still here that sort of keep me conscious and keep me focused. So thank you for having me, and I'm glad to be here. And a matter of fact, on the 18th, I'll be celebrating my anniversary. I'll be 32 years sober by the grace of God and your people, man. So I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, my friend, and we'll have to go in search of a virtual chip for you next week. Rick, good to see you, fireman. Come on in.
Hello, everyone. Rick Alcoholic. Today, as of not long ago, I've been introducing myself as such. Recovered it should apply to those who choose to do that. I mean, I am an alcoholic. It keeps me. That's who I am. It's my identification. It's like a full name, Richard C. Cully Jr., alcoholic. It's course, I don't sign my name like that, but anyways, where it says, whatever our race, creed, or color are the children, we are the, wait a minute, whatever our race, creed, or color are the children of a living creator with whom we may form a relationship upon simple understanding, upon simple and understandable terms, as soon as we are willing and honest enough to try. Until I became honest enough to try, I wasn't getting this either. It is, many people know my higher power to be Jesus, but I can relate to was Terry when she said she was followed outside of a meeting, and if somebody had told me that, I wouldn't have liked it either. What I try to tell people, you know, you have to take what you read in this book and apply it to the God of your understanding, and that is needed. There's one going on 6 years now, and called me twice in the last 4 days. He's drinking. Says he believes in God, but he's not journeying to God. And sometimes I talk to him. The other night I was at somebody else's house in Sunday night watching a football game with 4 other recovered alcoholics, and I called him back later on that night, and I tell him all the time, I cannot believe your alcoholism. You know, you're calling me, I told you what you need to do, and the only thing I can tell you, the only thing I tell you, what I tell you to do is what I've done. It's what's in this book. Yes, there's many others. There's the 12 and 12. There's living sober. There's all that. And all that, I do need them. But this is our basic text. For me, God is one guy yelled at me one time, says, God is the crux of his program. I don't know what I said to get that, but all I did was to, I apologized to him afterwards. I said, I don't know what I said, man, but, you know, maybe, you know, and he apologized right afterwards, too. But, my relationship with him is contingent on my daily connections to him. And then I'm able to have this design for living that really works. You know, I have one who's Buddhist. There's one who has taken away the rooms altogether. But we do talk every morning. A lot of times it's just texting. His Lord and Savior keeps him sober. My answer to that is my Lord and Savior wants me to stay here and give it back. But he needs to do what he needs to do. When there's one I'm speaking with, he wants to come visit in April. He was going to stay. He was going to come in the holidays, but he's gotten to see his son finally. And this gentleman is in Sweden, and I've never seen anybody have such a hard time with a higher power. says, well, you talk about the good orderly direction, and take the directions that's in the book, turn it into your higher power and follow it instead. So he says, I don't know what else to tell you, man, you know. He's not drinking now. For the last month, maybe he's a man who's got a great head on his shoulder. He tries to figure this out. He does finances for corporations. But yet, anyways, what is personal to me is the one that's in the Bible. And how do I understand him? I try to explain that by just saying simply, I'm here. I turn to him, and now I'm here. I never expected him to come down and babysit me. As of a month ago, I was able to, I mentioned before that I've been asked to be on the board of this men's sober living home, and I thought it was a great idea to bring the 164 to that group every Monday morning with Dr. Lppbbsg, yeah? And I tell them that. So when you hook up with a sponsor, these pages aren't strange to you. Just trying to show you, hey, look at this, you know. We got through with the forward of the 4th edition, and we started to read the doctor's opinion, and their attitude was, yeah, man, here we go now, we're gonna get it now. And so they're getting into it. It's growing. There's people in the rooms that are coming, and the guys who live there are coming, so it's growing. And I believe that's God. I ask him every day, keep me busy. And he's got me busy. How he works in my life. Last week I said to myself, you know what, I got my commitments now. I'm not taking on any more commitments this week. Before I could leave a meeting last week, somebody said, hey, can you chair the meeting next week? I said, sure, by the way. Can you speak of my anniversary? Sure, you know. And I get to my car and I'm laughing like he laughs at me, but I was not laughing at him. And I know that's him working in my life. Because I was determined not to take anything on extra this week. I thank him for it. I thank him all the time for what he's done for me. And I also thank him for everything he's going to keep doing for me that he hasn't done yet. So, I got another gentleman, I'll shut up after this, with 34 years. He said, man, you want to reconsider, we should do the whole book of the stories. I says, dude, we got 3 meetings very close to here, 3 different times that go cover to cover. I says, I'm trying to show them there's no fear in the 164. And the chapter after that, Bob's Nightmare, and okay. Started off with the set aside prayer. I wanted to end it with the 7-step prayer, but be the director, the playwright, set the stage, you know. So we do the Lord's Prayer. I asked, and I'm told, so I say, okay. I am grateful for the ones, especially with a lot of time, 3 times more time than I have, who have showed up, who are showing up consistently to do this Monday morning Big Book. Wednesday morning is open to discussion. I let him. God working in my life all the time. I love him. I know he loves me. He's brought me home, and he's going to use me. I'm one that he's using. I'm one of the many that he's using to maintain this home. This home, Alcoholics Anonymous, has to be maintained at all times, every day. So, I'm going to come off my soapbox now. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. Glad you are here, and I'm going to go ahead and jump in. Good evening, family. My name is Jamie. Very grateful, recovered alcoholic. When I start working with someone new, there generally comes a point in this conversation through their struggle that there are 2 things that I always tell them. And the first part of that comes out of where we read tonight. I tell them that I cannot give them the gift of desperation of a drowning man. There's something else I can't give anybody. I can't give anybody the gift of willingness. I can give my time, service, experience, what I have learned in the pathway that I've followed, but that's all I can give. Can't make anybody do a gosh darn thing. God only knows I've tried hard enough and long enough to help with that. But those are things that have to come from within. You know, what seemed at first a flimsy reed has proved to be the loving, powerful hand of God. I don't understand God any more today than I did when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, but I can guarantee you this 100%. That God has become the God of my experience. It's brought me through more pain, more difficulty, more guilt, more shame, more grief, more emotional pain, sober. And I never had to pick up a drink over any of it. This particular chapter tonight is still in the diagnosis of step 1. We're still in step 1 in this part of the book. You know, and people talk about the 12 and 12 all the time. The 12 and 12 was written because 16 years later Bill had some more experience with the steps. Okay, and they're his personal experience, and maybe through the experience of some of the others that he worked with, but the directions still aren't there. And the way to diagnose yourself for the only self-diagnosed disease in the world isn't there either. The self-diagnosis only lies within the pages of the doctor's opinion in the first 43 pages of this book. And we'll be getting into the final phase of the diagnosis aspect of step 1 after this, starting next week. Going to move on. And I say this all the time, and it has very much to do with what Rick started off with about where is it here? If what we have learned and felt and seems to mean anything at all, it means that all of us, whatever our race, creed, color, are children of a living creator with whom we may form a relationship upon the simple and understandable terms as soon as we are willing to be honest enough to try. Something that I have said ever since I have gotten sober is the disease of alcoholism is an equal opportunity disease. It knows no boundaries whatsoever. It does not care if we are man, woman, or child. It does not care about our sexual orientation, about our religious views on anything. It does not care what our ethnic background or culture is. It doesn't care about any of that. It's an equal opportunity destroyer. That being said, well, as we grow up, because of family histories and cultural things, we may grow up with prejudices and biases. Our program doesn't know any of that prejudice and bias either. Not the program itself. People might. But the program is designed in the first 164, the spiritual principles that we take through the process of the steps. Does not know any of that bias either. It's here for each and every one of God's children on this planet, regardless of where we come from, what our sexual orientation is, what our culture is, if we're man, woman, or child, or whatever. It is an opportunity for each one of us to be free from the lash of alcoholism. And it's been my experience that when we follow the steps as directed, our prejudice and our bias has a tendency to fall away, and we learn how to live with one another and love one another as brother and sister because of that common bond. And I think that's an absolutely beautiful and powerful thing. I love that Dr. William James, in his Varieties of Religious Experiences, indicates multitude of ways in which men have discovered God. Which leads me to page XX, which is the foreword to the second edition of our big book, published in 1955. And it says here, alcohol being no respecter of persons, we are an accurate cross-section of America and in distant lands. By the same democratic evening up process is now going on. By personal religious affiliation, we include Catholics, Protestants, Jews, Hindus, Muslims, and a sprinkling of Muslims and Buddhists. There are more than 15% of us are women. Look at how we have grown. Look at how we have changed. In 2015, our book had been translated into 70 approved translations, language translations. And with our US language, that made it 71. We actually have about 73 translations now, and we're in about 198 countries. That's huge. We carry the message and the spirit of recovery all over the world. What an absolutely magnificent gift the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is. I hear people all the time in meetings say that Jesus is my higher power, and then someone will say, "This is Alcoholics Anonymous, you can't say that." Doesn't say anywhere in the book you can't say that. While AA may now not have any opinion on religion or outside issues and doesn't want to be drawn into public controversy, the freedom and responsibility that each one of us is given with step 3 to find that power greater than ourselves that will work for us. I don't care if you want to have Willie the Wombat as your higher power. That's what your higher power can be. Mine is God. Our big book in the chapter to the agnostic, which I said earlier is my pathway, has led me back to a faith. Not the same faith of, I would say the same faith of my childhood, but not the same church of my childhood. Because I don't do organized doctrinal religion. But I most definitely do God's word as it's written. But that's my choice. And I'm not promoting religion. But here again, neither does this. This is saying that we have the freedom to explore whatever it is we want to explore, and we don't discriminate in Alcoholics Anonymous because of it. And that is one of the beautiful things about it, is we don't discriminate. The only requirement for any one of us to sit in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous is the desire to not drink. We don't have to meet some group's qualification code, because if they put that out, they're actually out of alignment with the traditions. And the traditions are to the group what the steps are to the individual. A lot of groups can run the way that they want, but a lot of groups can also be spiritually sick, and if you stick around Alcoholics Anonymous, you'll be able to tell the ones that are and tell the ones that aren't. Not every AA group is healthy. Not every AA meeting is healthy. And that's just a fact. You know, but that's for me to discern for myself which ones are healthy for me and which ones are not. Here's what I know for sure and for certain. That if I follow the outlined path that is in this book, my life will change. How do I know that? I'm not the same man I was when I got here so many years ago. In all the years I've been in Alcoholics Anonymous, my sponsor has never, ever said, Jamie, open your book to this page. However, I do that to a lot of people. But he's never told me what page I have to read. He's never really thumped the 12 and 12 on me, but he's always in his words used phrases like this. The book says something to this effect. And what he was really saying to me is, if I really wanted to know what was in the book, I needed to pick it up and read it and become to understand it for myself. Now, my sponsor has certainly helped me to understand what's in the book. But you know, folks, if we don't try, we will never know what kind of success we can have in Alcoholics Anonymous. And if I just say, I'm gonna do it, and never do it, nothing will ever change in my life. But if I take the spiritual practices and actually do them, my old ideas and attitudes will become new beliefs and new behaviors. And for that I'm truly grateful. I hope you will continue with us on the rest of our journey through this study. Art, would you like to come in and share before we close up? Yeah, I'm going to pick on you because I can.
Yeah, my name is Art. I'm a grateful recovered alcoholic. And my apologies for earlier in the meeting. I don't know what's going on with my. I recently changed service providers, and that's the second time that's happened in a couple of days. So I'm going to have to complain about it. But anyway, what we're talking about here tonight I went to a meeting yesterday where we had a newcomer, and so they turned it into a first step meeting. And there were a lot of people that talked about go to meetings, get a sponsor, 90 meetings in 90 days. And when it came my turn to share, it didn't take very long. I said, you know, everything that you've heard here is all good stuff. Nothing wrong with it. But I will add one thing to it. Get a book and study it. Because that's where you find the directions of how to take the steps. Talked about that in what we read tonight. We're going to find the clear-cut directions for taking the steps. I don't know what anybody thought about what my comments, but that was my comment. Add to everything you've already heard. Get a book and study. This program is life-changing, but only if I do what it tells me to do. I have become a great advocate for taking the steps. That's where I found the ability, if you will. That's where I found and learned how to change my life, how to change my attitudes. I'm also a big believer in the fact that I can't do any of this on my own. The book tells me that lack of power, that was our dilemma. There wasn't a lack of moral standards, it wasn't a lack of religion, it wasn't a lack of faith, it was a lack of power. That was my dilemma. I don't have the power to change myself. And I don't care how long or how hard I work on my defects of character, nothing changes until I get connected to that source of power. And to get connected to that source of power is what the steps are really all about. It's what this whole book is about. It told us in the reading tonight that the stories in the end, after Dr. Bob's nightmare, all of those stories are people telling in their own words how they made contact with God. Whatever that looks like in your life. And I use the term God because that's what the steps used. That's what the book uses. That's how it describes that power greater than ourselves. It's God. Doesn't have to be the same God that I believe in. But that's what the program tells me is the source of power that's lacking in my life. And it's really quite simple. But we like to complicate things. The magical complicating mind of an alcoholic. I don't know why that is, but it just seems to be the case that we can take the simplest thing, simplest ideas, and make them so complicated that we can't figure out how to do it. It's really not that complicated. It's quite a simple program. And I didn't think this program would work for me because of its simplicity. The problems that I was facing in life were much more complicated than that. And yet, it all comes down to that one phrase. Lack of power. That was our dilemma. And it goes on to tell me that I have to find a power greater than myself by which I can live. And the steps lead me to that power. All I have to do is follow them. Follow the directions in the book. Do what's indicated, and I get to be free. And I find a way of life that is peaceful. The stress level in my life today is very low, very low. And I like it that way. See, life doesn't have to be complicated. But we make it complicated. I made my life complicated because I was such a rebel. And I didn't want to listen to anybody. And I had to learn things on my own. And sometimes I had some very painful lessons. And there are some of those lessons that I continue to repeat. And I learned a long time ago that every life situation is an opportunity to learn a lesson. And if I fail to learn the lesson that's in that circumstance or experience, whatever, then I will continue to repeat that until I learn the lesson. And it's not because I'm being punished. It's because I need to learn something. See, sometimes we consider discipline to be a punishment. It's not always punishment. In fact, it rarely is punishment. Discipline is It's a way to teach us. We learn lessons. And when the book talks about we let God discipline us because we are undisciplined people. And God's discipline is easy. I just have to surrender to it. As long as I'm fighting it, I'm not getting it. I turn myself into the lessons that God wants me to learn. And I surrender to His power. And I get to have a good life. I get to be free. I can be happy no matter what's happening. I can have that joy inside, the joy of living, no matter what's happening, no matter what the circumstance. And I can have that peace that passes all understanding when I learn to tap into that power. And I've talked long enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Art. Trish, you want to close us out?
Sure. From page 164. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask Him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously, you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with Him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then.
Thank you so much, Trish. You know, folks, and thank you all for being here tonight. I believe that it's very rare in today's world where our disease, the disease of alcoholism, doesn't somehow touch about every human being on this planet. If it's not us directly, it's generally a family member or a friend. But some of us all have somebody in our lives who suffer from alcoholism one way or another. I believe that we're all here because somebody else prayed for us long before we prayed for ourselves to get here, long before we reached out for help. So let's take a moment of silence for those who are still sick and suffering. There can be a whole lot of people who die this year of this disease. And then we'll close out in our true primary purpose fashion, our pickle fashion of virtually circling up and holding hands together, since we can't do it in person. So here's your moment. Thank you. And who will take us from shame to grace if we let Him? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.
Hallowed be thy name.
Thy kingdom come,
Thy kingdom come.
thy will be done,
Thy will be done.
on earth as it is in the heavens. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thanks. Thank you, folks. Good to see you, Rick. Thanks everybody for being here. Sam, come back and join us. And
For sure.
Thank you.
Good night, fellas.
Good night, I love you.
Thank you.
Love you all. Thank you.
Night, Sharon. Good to
Good
see
night.
you. Enjoy that
Nice to see you
grandbaby.
too. Yeah.
Thank you, Betty.
Doing
Glad you're
some
here.
dancing.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Nicole. Nice to see
How are
you.
Good night.
Nice to see
Everyone.
you.
Jim.
Yeah. How you doing?
Night, Jim.
Thank you.
See you later, brother.
Doing good. Sitting here dancing with the baby.
Yeah.
That's always a good thing.
Yeah.
Oh,
Naked
good.
baby.
Oh,
Oh.
I'm so cute.